There are a lot of plays to get into in the Chargers' preseason finale against the 49ers, but it starts with Joshua Kelley's 75-yard touchdown and potentially locking up the backup running back job.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers for 8 seasons together, but this is our 6th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day and night. Thank you guys, as always, for making this your first listen on this Friday night. And to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, so much to get into today. I mean, Joshua Kelley made the statement you wanted to see someone make in this final game. Maybe a little unfair to Isaiah Spiller, who kind of sputtered to the finish. Did Elijah Dotson do enough? So much to get into from the preseason finale, including JT Woods flashing, Dean Leonard looking good, Daiyan Henley. And you know who else was flexing in this game? Kellen Moore, who decided he was just going to put it on the 49ers defense and run the ball down their throat, especially late in the game with Max Duggan struggling to throw the ball a little bit, but it was nice to see him evolve in real time. So cool to watch from the new offensive coordinator. But this episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with the promo code LOCKEDON to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. So, David, Joshua Kelley didn't waste much time trying to state that he should be RB2 behind Austin Ekeler in this offense, and I think what else could he have done, right? He has 2 carries. One of them goes for a 75-yard touchdown. Do you think that was enough? Do you think that was his statement to lock up the backup job behind Austin Ekeler?
I mean, it doesn't get much more emphatic than that, Daniel. I mean, I don't know what else that you can do in with the carries that you get, with the opportunities that was presented to him. He hits the hole, and I think the beautiful thing here is the breakaway speed to be able to take it all the way to the house and did not let anybody catch him. And there was a lot of 49ers starters that were still in, on that play. So I think that's something that the Chargers should feel very good about. I think Joshua Kelley should feel very, very good about, because ever since he went back and kind of changed his body and rededicated himself, he turned into a completely different player. I think that's carried over into this training camp, and I think he put an exclamation point on it with that 75-yard house call.
I think it's worth mentioning that he was the starter for this game, right? He was the first one in and the first one out. If that, tells you anything about where they kind of stand with him, I think that is noteworthy for sure. I mean, he wasn't coming back in the game after that 75-yard touchdown, but that's not a touchdown he gets his rookie year, flatly, right? He's in a different level of shape. He's a different level of kind of physical specimen now than he was as a rookie, and it showed right there. And it's the second time, because Isaiah Spiller did the same thing. We're like, now, do both of these guys have breakaway speed? I mean, it's hard because in this competition, both dudes played extremely well, you know, and I do think it's a competition that's going to bleed over into the regular season. It's hard for me to imagine right now that Isaiah Spiller goes into this season having maybe potentially been the best running back the first 2 games of the preseason and just totally disappears. I don't necessarily see that. But for Josh Kelley, we know the physicality has been there with this new downhill running style that we're seeing from Kellen Moore. I mean, I'm ready for the regular season start, David. I mean, I think either way with Josh Kelley or Isaiah Spiller, like the Chargers are in good hands, and all of a sudden it looks like you have kind of an RB2 problem, and now you're having a hard time really trying to decide between 2 looking like very good options.
I mean, what a great problem to have. I mean, especially in such stark contrast to last year when the Chargers, efficiency-wise, was one of the absolute worst in the NFL. I mean, obviously, Austin Ekeler was a touchdown machine, but your game-to-game basis, the Chargers were not able to run the football, especially not when they had to run the football. When the other team was expecting it, the Chargers were not able to be effective in that. And it just feels like this offseason, this preseason in particular, it seems like the new rushing schemes, they are very much working. They are very real. And now you feel like if the Chargers are in that situation to where they have a lead and they need to bleed that clock out and be able to get things down to triple zeros, that they now have the rushing attack to be able to do that.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about Kellen Moore's rushing scheme later on in the show, because it was one of my biggest takeaways. And now that we've seen it over a 3-game sample, obviously with 2 games being very good, it's easy to get excited about. And I mean, what we won't talk about on this show is what happened early in the game where the Chargers offense was facing off against that first team 49ers defense, and the Chargers defense is going up against that first team 49ers offense, right? I mean, that's what it should look like, honestly. I'm not
of course
concerned about that at all.
No.
Tackling, obviously, a little different. But getting back to Isaiah Spiller, I think the tough thing here for me is, like, I don't think Isaiah Spiller did anything to lose the job. You know, like, Isaiah Spiller, in my opinion, outside of Elijah Dotson's first, miraculous game, like, he was better than Josh Kelley in weeks 1 and week 2, even though Josh Kelley, to his credit, I mean, 2 different games where he's averaging over 6 yards per carry. They both played great.
Yeah.
But the problem is that for Isaiah Spiller, he had a 71-yard touchdown that gets called back and doesn't count, right? But we saw the breakaway speed. It was still good to see. It was against the Rams defense. It was terrible. But it just shows you how quickly things can turn, because, like, he would have averaged 15 yards a carry in that game, right? But, like, instead it goes down as nothing, and he still averages over 5 yards per carry. But, like, I think Isaiah Spiller looks like such an improved version over what we saw as a rookie. So even though we're saying this right now, like, I think you're still taking away Isaiah Spiller is a much improved player.
Even tonight, Daniel, I know the stat line doesn't look great, but there's a couple of runs there that would have gone for 0 if it wasn't for Isaiah Spiller.
Absolutely.
Keeping his legs churning, keeping that vision, and keeping, going forward. I mean, those are all different things, different aspects of Isaiah Spiller's game. Also, I just feel like he's much more confident, and he's showed you why the Chargers selected him. He's a guy that can really get in between the tackles. He can get north and south. I think this rushing concept, this rushing scheme is built way more for Isaiah Spiller than the previous one. I think he's going to have a lot of success. Yeah, he's the RB3 probably, but I still feel like he's going to factor into the running game throughout this season. He's definitely going to get some touches.
And like I said, I see this going into the regular season. Like, if it gets to the regular season time, Isaiah Spiller clearly looks like the better running back out of the two, getting kind of situational carries. I mean, he can still win this job. So I'm not going to take away anything from his preseason performance. He's looked awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Kelley plays special teams as well. Joshua Kelley is also a very good pass protector. That's going to be a huge part of the equation, too. Can you go block and protect Justin Herbert,
of course,
Golden God's son? So it's all part of it. But I do want to talk about Elijah Dotson, because this was a big game for him. Crazy game, 15 yards a carry, 6 for 92, 235-plus yard touchdowns in week 1. Then comes back down to earth last week. Pretty average yards per carry. Has a bad drop on the final drive from the offense that kind of stalls things. And then I think came back today. He didn't blow me away, but I still think he looks solid. Still think he looked good. I still think he has kind of NFL-level explosiveness in his game, David. I still don't know, though, if it was enough in this game for him to definitively say, hey, he's on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was going to take a Herculean type of effort for Elijah Dotson to be able to make the roster, and I just don't think he was able to provide that type of performance tonight. I mean, 6 carries, 33 yards, 1 catch for 9 yards. I mean, that's decent. Obviously, that's a pretty good yards per carry average, but that wasn't enough for him to be able to put him over the top and be able to force the Chargers to have to figure out a way to carry a 4th running back. I just don't know if it was enough tonight for that. But I also do feel like he's a very obvious and strong candidate for the Chargers practice squad, which is still very, very important. And those guys are still, they factor into this team. A lot of those guys play throughout the year. So if the Chargers have some injuries that they have to deal with, they can feel confident that they have a guy in Elijah Dotson that can come up, have some, provide some, some speed and some juice and be able to make some plays.
Yeah, I mean, he is an NFL-level athlete to me just from the eye test, right? I mean, I think he finishes runs hard. He has a certain level of physicality that I think, especially in this running scheme that we're going to talk about more, there's a lot to like there. I mean, I think he is clearly running back 4 at this point, and I just don't think that he for sure makes the Chargers roster because of roster construction, right? Xander Horvath, a guy who got a little fullback sneak in tonight, showed the athleticism.
Shout out to Xander Horvath.
Most athletic fullback that's ever come out of the draft. I like his combine numbers were like Derrick Henry for the size he is. But he plays a ton of special teams too, and probably gets on the team for those reasons. So I don't know if they're keeping 5 running backs total, especially when one of them is so much clearly better at special teams. Either way, I do think he's a practice squad, almost lock at this point. We'll see if he clears the waiver wire. But, I mean, at this point last year, David, the Chargers were getting ready to go sign Sony Michel because they had so many questions about their backfield, right? Like, where this kind of group has gone from last year at this time to this year, you have a much better grasp on what you think is behind Austin Ekeler, and Austin Ekeler's been begging for that for years. So really excited to see that group. But it was also really exciting to see someone we know is going to get snaps on this defense. JT Woods coming in and having, I think, a really good overall game after an early missed tackle. And Daiyan Henley, love Daiyan Henley. He gets his first ever interception. So good to see. Should have had 2, though. So we're going to get to JT Woods, Daiyan Henley, and Dean Leonard, a surprise on this team right now, coming up right after this. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about Harry's Razors, because no matter why you shave, Harry's has you covered for the best shave of your life at a price you love. I know what you're thinking. You're seeing this giant beard, and I'm talking about razors, but this thing does have some upkeep to it. I promise you, my wife will not let me let this thing go nuts. And when I do have to shave, I go with Harry's, because from their legendary high-quality razors to skin products like exfoliating face wash and hydrating lotion, Harry's gives you a premium shave without the premium price tag. I'm usually actually terrible with razors, and I've cut myself very many times. Used to have to be clean shaven for work, and I would just chop myself up every single time. When I got this starter pack, I didn't cut myself a single time. That's one of the biggest compliments I can give to someone. Got to get this neckline, had to get everything under control, and the starter set is a $13 value for only $3 when you subscribe. You can also get your refills for as low as $2, which is half of what you pay for other blades. The other nice thing is they have a bunch of skin products as well. The other thing that comes along with having this beard is my wife says, okay, well, you better have a nice face, right? And I have to use all of the different lotions, washes, and creams that come along with it. But right now, you can get your best shave ever this summer with Harry's Razors and skincare products. Get a $13 starter set for just $3 at harrys.com/NFL. That's harrys.com/NFL for that $3 starter set. Let's talk about some defense. I'm a defender at heart, right? Truly, old middle linebacker might be hard to tell right now, but I had my eyes on a few different defenders, and we'll have more time to break down this game. The Everydayers, we will be back with you guys Sunday night, another nighttime show with our final 53-man roster prediction on Sunday night before all the cuts happen. Can't wait for that. And we'll have more time to go over the defensive and offensive line and stuff. JT Woods, though, flashed, and it wasn't hard to see, right? He stood out in this game in a positive way, and just another step in his progression where every game, David, we're seeing some learning curve. We're seeing some bumps in the road. But, man, I mean, the progression for JT Woods at this point, seeing where he was at last season in the preseason, he looks like a different player in a lot of ways, right? He did have a bad missed tackle early in the game against Brandon Ayuk because, I mean, it was actually Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy all out there playing against the Chargers' second-team defense. But after that missed tackle, and it's a tackle that he has to make because you're going to be playing against guys like Brandon Ayuk every single week in the NFL level. No excuses playing against starters. After that, though, I thought we saw some really, really good plays. At one point, I think halftime, he led the team in tackles with 6. Really nice to see that physicality there, him coming up, making tackles, and being pretty sure-handed.
Yeah, obviously you never like to see him miss a tackle, but you also understand that it happens, and he has to know that it happens, but the mentality of not allowing that play to affect him going forward, that's what you like to see, because
Huge.
you can't let it affect you, and it definitely can, and we've seen that happen with other players. It will take you out, and then all you'll do is make bad plays all the rest of the night. That did not happen for JT Woods. He made that mistake, he learned from it, and then proceeded to have a really strong performance in the first half. Made several really strong open field tackles that really give you a lot of confidence, because that is what he really struggled with last year. It's clear and obvious throughout this offseason and back beforehand, he put in a ton of work to be able to fix his mistakes and turn himself into a much better, more dependable player. Obviously, we got to see what it looks like when they strap it up for real, but JT Woods is definitely improved.
And I'm not trying to blow any smoke, there are still some serious concerns. I mean, just his size, right? I mean, going back to mentality, though, he has a much more physical mindset this year.
He does.
He is coming downhill, and he's trying to make a hit. Sometimes, seemingly his 190-pound body can't do it. And there was a play tonight where he went up with bad intentions and ended up on the wrong end of a truck stick. I know I'm old. That used to be a Madden thing. You truck stick players.
Oh, come on. People know what truck stick is.
I don't know.
You're not that old.
You got jacked up. That's what he was trying to do. But he ended up on the wrong side of it. He'll get credit for a tackle because, the running back ended up going down.
Just like they say, it's a hit in the rule book, man. It's a hit in the scorecard.
It's definitely going down as a tackle, right? It's like seeing eye single, and it's like it's a line drive in the box.
That's it.
That's always. I like it. I mean, there's still some concern for me. You can't miss tackles for, that lead to 40-yard gains in the regular season without standing out in the worst possible way. Behind JT Woods, I mean, Raheem Layne didn't play defensively tonight, which is kind of interesting. Maybe that shows where he is in this depth chart, and on this roster. Mark Webb, still nothing really to write home about. He had a nice tackle.
Almost had an interception. He was a fingertip away.
He was. But another guy who was very close to an interception was Daiyan Henley, who I almost tweeted somebody who's going to pick off Sam Darnold tonight because I just felt it coming, especially after a couple opportunities last week against Jameis Winston where he was just making the throws with some audacity that should never be thrown. Daiyan Henley, after missing a tackle, and the missed tackle sucked because he made a perfect read, and he got there quickly. But he got there a little bit too quickly. He lost his footing a little bit and ended up missing a tackle, but he bounced back in the red zone. Great coverage on a play where really Sam Darnold had all the time in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Tried to squeeze a throw into the end zone, but Daiyan Henley right there in coverage had it in both
hands. Right off his hands. Oh, man.
Feels a little bit better, though, David, like a Sour Patch Kid. First they're sour, and then they're sweet. Later on, he gets a chance for redemption. Cam Brown breaks up a pass, tips it in the air, and honestly, it takes some pretty good awareness, right, to be ready for how Daiyan Henley got his first preseason interception because it bounces up. He gets it one-handed, corrals it, fights another Chargers defender. I think it was Michael Jones that ended up.
Well, I think he was kind of helping him. I think it was just kind of helping him maintain possession.
It was weird, though. I mean, I think he wanted the pick for himself. I'm going to say.
Oh, well, sure.
I think he wanted that pick. I mean, Michael Jones actually looked pretty good in this game, too.
He did. He had a nice tackle for loss, too. Yeah.
But Daiyan Henley, the energy he came to the sideline with after that pick, which I think makes it better, But the Ranger got in on the action. He was all over the place in coverage. It's easy to see why the Chargers drafted him. I mean, I liked his game on first watch more than I like the games of Nick Niemann and Eamon Ogbongbemiga. I think he's ready to be that first linebacker on the field potentially.
I think with Daiyan, it's just if you didn't know anything about football, if you had never watched football, you're like, man, that guy's always around the football. That guy is always around. He is ready to make a play. That's my takeaway with Daiyan. He's just always around the ball. He's ready to make plays. The athleticism is off the charts. The ability to run sideline to sideline, to be able to understand and recognize what's happening and to make a quick decision and go and be able to shoot and make a tackle. That's what Daiyan is capable of doing. I mean, it just feels like the sky's the limit for him to be already this good, to have this many transferable skills already is fantastic. And I think it's great news for the Chargers. It just makes you feel better and better about that pick every single day that you have him. The Chargers planning for the future and right now, because I feel like Daiyan Henley is going to make an impact on this Chargers defense this year.
And let's be honest. I mean, last week he was probably the best defender on the field. Got a sack or half a sack. This week comes back with an interception. That's what he did in college. He filled up the stat sheet. I mean, he excels in a lot of areas. Had a nice blitz last week. And I'm not worried about the missed tackle because it wasn't really a physicality thing. He overran a play a little bit, but he is probably already one of the most sure tacklers on this team.
Yeah, very.
I'm just really not worried about it. If it's Kenneth Murray, maybe I'm a little bit more worried. With Daiyan Henley, I'm just not worried. I've seen him do it a bunch of times. I just am excited, man. I'm excited to see what this dude can do. It seemed like he kind of, even though he was in the game in the second half, seemed like they got him out of there kind of quick after they saw what they needed to see from him. But I do want to talk about Dean Leonard real quick, too, because this is a 7th round pick that when you look at the stats from this game, when you look at his grades, it's probably not going to come up roses, right? I mean, I thought he held his own against Brandon Ayuk, against Deebo Samuel in those opportunities. The starting offense from the 49ers did have a big catch made over him, did have a nice pass breakup as well, though. And this is a guy that I think, to me, David, easily is one of the Chargers' most improved players from last year to this year.
It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable to me to watch Dean Leonard and be able to see the transition from where he was to where he is now. I mean, that's player development right there. That's what that looks like. That is taking a guy who has some obvious, traits that you like,
4'3",
with the speed
6 foot
and the size, right? Yeah, the prototypical corner traits are there. It was up to the Chargers and the Chargers coaching staff to be able to take those traits and help make that translate to success on the field. And we're seeing the beginning of that right now with Dean Leonard. So unbelievable value already for what he provided on special teams. And now it looks like he's getting better and better on defense every single time he gets put out there. And it just makes you feel so much better about this Chargers cornerback groom. It's great. It's fantastic to see. And it's phenomenal to watch player development right in front of your eyes.
That's the best part for me. That's what makes good teams. Good teams develop players. And if you're getting guys like Dean Leonard with your 7th round pick, and that guy can turn into something, and Jasir Taylor's your 6th round pick, and Jamari Sawyer's your 6th round pick.
Yeah.
That's crazy, you know,
and
I think we're seeing more guys even being able to produce this year that we feel like can contribute, you know, and we'll at least have some sort of role with this team and not just disappear off the roster.
That's what makes you great is your depth.
Right, and what David wishes is that the Chargers, instead of taking Max Duggan in the 7th round, would have found this year's Dean Leonard. Max Duggan, though, hey, plus athlete. I don't know how the Chargers can say they're going to use a roster spot on him at this point. It's just hard. I mean, throwing the football wise, they've always kept 3. I don't know if they're going to do it this year, but it's time, David, to get unreasonably excited about Kellen Moore's rushing scheme because of the 3rd game in a preseason where no starters played. So we're going to get into that coming up right after this. First, I need to tell you guys about a new way to play fantasy football, and of course, I'm talking about Underdog Fantasy because August is here, and you know what that means. The official start of fantasy football drafting month is now. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. This is a different way to do fantasy. All you have to do, 1 live snake draft, no waivers, no trades. Underdog sets your best lineup for you every single week. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania tournament happening right now. This is a tournament you're going to want to get into. The largest fantasy football contest of all time is back, and even bigger, ready for this, $15 million in total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Last year, the winner drafted their team in July, so it's not too late, guys. Go get in on the action because Underdog is the easiest place to play fantasy football and the best place for Best Ball. I had never heard about Best Ball. Maybe my new favorite thing because of the lack of time I have during football season for obvious reasons. But we're still even trying to work on a way to get our little Underdog Fantasy thing going with you guys as well. So all you have to do is visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON, all caps, to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code LOCKEDON. I promised you guys unreasonable excitement about Kellen Moore's rushing scheme in the 3rd preseason game, and I meant it because it was awesome. This is, David, one of the underlying things that has nothing to do with the players that are on the field. Obviously, the Chargers running backs played great. In this preseason, first of all, just with Kellen Moore, all the talk was Justin Herbert, rightfully so. Unlocking Justin Herbert, getting Justin Herbert to the next level. Maybe not enough talk, though, was talking about how good the rushing attack was in Dallas and how much an improved running game would be able to help Justin Herbert. And I know, this is preseason game 3. A lot of the guys that played in this game may never play football again, let alone make the football team.
Very fair, yeah.
But still, David, how can I not get excited? I mean, 2 of the 3 preseason games, the Chargers are going over 200 rushing yards. In this game, they go 267 yards on 41 carries for 6.5 yards per carry. And I put out on Twitter, like, you could take the Josh Kelley 75-yard touchdown rush away, and they're still almost going for 200 yards. I mean, in the other game, the first game against the Rams, they did take away Isaiah Spiller's 71-yard touchdown run. They still went over 200 rushing yards in that game. To me, David, it looks like a night and day difference. I'm excited to see this starting offensive line out there doing this, right? But to see what they've been doing pretty much no matter who's been in the backfield in 2 of these 3 games and consistently throughout this offseason, like, it's really hard not to get excited about the rushing attack that Kellen Moore's orchestrating right now.
Yeah, I mean, conceptually, you see it. You see the difference. It's very clear to me in this preseason how much different the running game is. It's very intentional. It seems very simplified, but it's suited better for the players that the Chargers have. The type of offensive linemen they have, the type of running backs that they have. The type of
tight ends that they have, too. Right. I mean, we know they don't have great blocking tight ends, right? And it doesn't stop them at all. Right?
Not at all. Yeah. I mean, it's fantastic to see because, obviously they're being very vanilla in the preseason. They're not showing a lot, but even then they're having this much success. It's clear that this Chargers rushing offense is going to be a lot different in a very, very positive way. And Kellen Moore and his concepts are definitely a major reason why.
To me, I think the coolest part was watching him adjust on the fly. And you might be wondering what I mean about that. But when Max Duggan went on the field after halftime because Easton Stick had another pretty uneven performance in the first half. Not a ton of inspiring play there. But Max Duggan is a guy who's truly on the roster bubble. We don't know if they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks because they have in years past. This would be the biggest stretch of a roster-worthy guy, though, with Max Duggan. He's just incredibly raw. But after the first drive, which they went backwards 10 yards, right?
Yep, 3 plays, negative 10 yards. Yeah,
exactly. So, yeah, that's not the best start. But you saw a shift right after that. And it's like, hey, throwing the ball might not be the move here, right? And the next drive, they go on an 11-play, 77-yard touchdown drive where Max Duggan not only completed only one pass, he only attempted one pass, and it was 4th and 2. He rolled out, credit to him, bought himself some time. Hunter Campmoyer ends up getting open. They score a touchdown right there. But, like, seeing a drive like that, and we've seen a couple that have been similar to that, and watching Kellen Moore be like, okay, well, my quarterback can't throw. So in the scenario of Justin Herbert breaking his arm, what is this offense going to look like? And we saw a lot of, I think, inspired play and more of that, hey, they know we're going to run it. Max Duggan can't throw it, and we're still finding success.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, it's about the intent, and it's great to see Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator in a meaningless game with no starters. And I understand, but he still made an adjustment on the fly. He recognized something, and he made a decision to change it going forward. And I think that's what you like to see, because not everything is going to go your way. Not everything you have cooked up in your game plan is going to work. Teams make adjustments, and I think it's very great to see for the Chargers being able to see an offensive coordinator make an adjustment in real time and be able to see tangible results off of that adjustment. I feel like we didn't see enough adjustments last year, and when we did, maybe they were too late. So being able to recognize when you need to make it and then go ahead and make that adjustment, and it led to some positive results. That is definitely nice to see. But yeah, I mean, 10 straight runs to get you all the way down the field, and you set up a nice, easy little touchdown. But yeah, that's what it was. It was all run, set that up, and finished it off.
To me, the more interesting thing is Max Duggan's game, right? They didn't play him at all in the second preseason game. In this one, he goes 4 of 9 for 15 yards. I mean, that's just not enough through there. And he's not Lamar Jackson with the ball in his hands either, right?
No.
But Duggan ended up carrying it 6 carries for 51 yards. Shout out to Stone Smart, who had one catch in this game and still impressed me heavily because 2 key blocks on quarterback keepers, right? Love to see that. And also, or actually 3 big blocks, because he had a big block on the Josh Kelley 75-yard touchdown too. And he might not be a great inline blocker, right? But when you're moving him around, he can get in people's ways at the very least, right? Like, Kellen Moore wasn't using him like a traditional blocking tight end. He got him in motion. He used him as a lead blocker, something we saw Steven Anderson do a little bit.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Too, because he wasn't a prototypical guy like that.
Right.
We'll get into it in our 53-man roster prediction. I don't know how the Chargers can keep 3 this year. I mean, we did hear Brandon Staley a little bit kind of open up to the possibility of potentially keeping only 2 quarterbacks in his last press conference, not the one after tonight's game, but the last one he did before that. So maybe, David, but it's pretty clear at this point, Max Duggan isn't a finished product. He's not an NFL level product. I mean, and to you, a waste of a 7th round pick.
Yeah, I mean, he was, honestly, for me. I just didn't see it.
We'll see,
I mean, a lot of the things that I saw in college is what I saw in the preseason. It's just issues with making decisions. I mean, really resorting to running very, very quickly and not really going through progressions. And even when he did throw the ball, it just, didn't seem like it was very... He just doesn't belong at this level to me, and I think it didn't take me very long to be able to recognize that. I don't see how it's possible that the Chargers see it any differently. I just don't, especially not with Max Duggan specifically. I just don't think that he would be the guy to be your 3rd quarterback, Daniel. I've seen enough, and it's enough for me to say that the Chargers should be keeping only 2 quarterbacks this season.
And we'll see. We'll see what happens, right? I know a lot of people have seen the emergency 3 quarterback rule that's new this year. That guy still has to make your initial 53-man roster. Yeah. But a lot of times this season or in the offseason, we've talked about hey, roster construction-wise, it makes a lot more sense to not carry 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks anyway. So keep other guys at depth at more important positions. If you get down 2 quarterbacks and don't have Justin Herbert or Easton Stick, you're screwed anyways. Let's be honest, right? But
of course.
I think Keelan Doss deserves a shout out for this too.
He does.
I mean, if they're keeping a 6th receiver based on production, it's him.
He's been rock solid.
1 catch, 10 yards on 7 targets in the preseason. That's just not going to get it done. But thank you to the everydayers who stayed up late for this late night version of the Locked On Chargers podcast. And make sure you don't miss it. Go subscribe now that you're on here to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can also find us on all of our social media. We post the show there every day. You can hit us up on X or Twitter at Locked On LAC. And you can also find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogemeyer at Dro Talk SD. I'm just going to keep calling it Twitter. I apologize. I don't really apologize. That's just what it's always kind of going to be to me. But thank you guys so much for checking out the show. So much to get into, and we'll be back with you guys every day as we mean it. Sunday night live show predicting this 53-man roster, and we can't wait to see you guys. So make sure you're subscribing now so you get that notification. We'll be putting some posts out as well. But hey, it's time. The Chargers have to trim this thing down. We'll be back on Sunday night to talk to you guys about it. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.